Are we recording? I think we are. I can see myself on the screen over there. Yep, here we go. All right, g'day everyone. It's John here from the Ohazas podcast, and welcome to episode number 76. I think this is. We're well on our way to 100 episodes. One of these days, hopefully, probably by the end of maybe not this year, but soon. Anyway, I'm John, the host of Ohazas podcast, and we're going to be covering a couple of little topics today, as always. And we'll be ending with word of the day at the end, which is where I present one Japanese word that's connected to one of the topics that we've spoken about during the episode. Okay, well, thanks for joining. And if you're on the audio-only version, I hope the audio is coming through okay on the proper mic this time. And if you're on YouTube or watching the video on X, hello to you. And as you know, I'll be putting up little pics and things over here on the side of the screen when I mention something that needs that. So one of those things is actually, let's start off with Japanese books, or books for studying Japanese, to be more accurate. I came across something the other week. It was a couple of weeks ago in a bookstore here at Nagoya Station. Upstairs, it's on level, I think it's, don't quote me on this, it's level 8. Yes, I think I've got that right. It's level 8 of the JR Towers. And you've got, big cameras on levels 9 and 10, and the bookstore is on level 8. I think it's called Sanseido. Anyway, it's a fantastic bookstore. I highly recommend it if you're in the area. And I was having a look at their Japanese language section for learning Japanese as a foreign language. And I found these books over here, which I posted on my personal Twitter account, and got a fantastic reaction to. It was, I think we got something like almost 600 likes on that. And I had no idea so many people were interested in that kind of material. And but you know what? I'm kind of not surprised looking back, because as I flicked through the books, there were 2 of them, by the way, and this photo actually shows both of them. I found out later through some of the replies how they differ. It's just basically they have different stories, and maybe it's best to have both books if you want to have access to a lot of different stories in Japanese and English. But the beauty of these books that I found was that they were bilingual. And by that, I mean you have the Japanese on one side and the English on the other. You have very neatly arranged vocabulary lists that sort of break down the important words, or the words that are connected to the theme on the side in both English and Japanese, along with the kanji and the readings and that kind of thing, which can be extremely useful when you're studying Japanese. And the beauty of these kinds of books is that you can learn while you're enjoying a story. It's not your traditional textbook where you're just sort of memorizing grammar rules or things like that. And personally, and I know I'm not alone when I say this, it's much more effective when you can actually learn through real usage of language. And it's a great way to learn. And I'm not saying that there's no value in learning grammar and rules, because they are, of course, extremely important. And I highly recommend that you actually start by learning basic grammar when you start learning any language. However, once you learn to a certain degree of the grammar structures and vocabulary, it's important to start seeing how they're used in real life, because you'll start noticing deviations from the rules, and you'll slowly then your brain will start building an awareness of nuances and things like that. It's extremely important to sort of see how language is used in actual life. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up. And while I'm here, I do also want to mention one of the books that helped me a lot in my Japanese language learning, and that is this book here. And this is an old book. I bought this probably over 25 years ago or somewhere around there in Australia. And this book is what got me sort of understanding how Japanese verbs are used, and how all the different forms of the verbs are structured, how they're made. And I don't know if this is just me, but I'm pretty sure it's not just me. But once you figure out how to unlock the whole verb mystery in Japanese, and it's probably the same for a lot of languages. I think verbs really unlock the potential of language, because nouns help you, because they're things. You can just point at things and go that, and you can start saying, pointing out things and saying what you're referring to if someone can't understand what you're saying. But without verbs, you can't actually express action, obviously. So you can't express what you want to do being the extremely relevant word here, because they're verbs and they're things that we do, things that you want to do, things that are being done. And this is obviously, I don't have to go on and explain why it's important. I'm sure everyone realizes why verbs are so important. But in Japanese, I find there's an added element to verbs, because in English, we have the luxury of using pronouns all the time. So we're always saying like I, me, you, they, he, she, so you automatically know. So even if you got the verb, sort of the form of the verb wrong, you'd sort of maybe, be able to put it together based on the pronoun that's being used. You sort of guess that, he's talking about that person over there. Whereas in Japanese, and this is a point of frustration for a lot of people learning Japanese, is that there's no subject. There's no he, she, they, I, you. And it's just a verb is blurted. And unless you know the verb form, it's very difficult for you to then sort of guess from, even from the context. It can be difficult to figure out who that verb is applied to. So it's extremely important, especially, and this is especially true for the passive form of verbs and also the when it comes into honorifics, because your mind can deduce that when an honorific is being used, it's obvious that the person is not talking about an action that they're performing for themselves. It's got to be for someone else, and it's likely to be someone like a customer. So you can sort of put two and two together and figure out that the person's talking about a customer or someone important or someone that they respect or needs to be respected, and so on. And the same can be said for humble verbs. There's humble verb forms, and someone will use that when they're talking about, themselves, when they're doing something. So this is one of the reasons why Japanese can get away with not using a subject all the time in every single sentence like we do in English. Anyway, that's an excellent book. And to be honest, I've looked around for books like this since then. This is like I said, it's 25 years old. And I have found something like an updated version. I'm not 100% sure if it's the exact same book. I'll look into that a little bit and I'll tweet about it or post about it on X if I find any info. But there aren't many books like this, to my knowledge. There are grammar books, but this is quite different. I'll actually put a photo. I'll take a photo of one of the pages so you can see how it works. It's one page to one verb, and it looks like this. And so you'll see on the one page, you have all of the different forms of that verb listed very conveniently, and it's very easy to understand. The way it's laid out, really, really easy to understand. And what really did it for me, because just a table like this, it's not going to really help you, but what really did it for me is the sample sentences down the bottom. They've actually put a lot of thought into those, because if they were lazy, they would have just listed the same form of the verb for all, like there's a few sentences there, but they've actually taken the time to list various forms of the verb. So you can see how they're used in what kind of situations and what kind of sentences. And it's just, I don't know, maybe maybe it just clicked with me. I'm not sure. But if you're having trouble with verbs, I actually highly recommend this book. And I think you should have a look at it and see if you can find it in a bookstore, even if it's not the same one, maybe something that's similar that focuses on verbs, because I really think verbs are a very important part of Japanese language learning. So take a look into that one. Okay, so that's all I had to say for the books. Let's move on to the next topic, shall we? So I tried something quickly on my X account the other day. I had myself set up with the computer in the background, and I wanted to sort of try out some short versions of videos that I could just post on X exclusively and maybe not on YouTube. Just little updates, things like that. And one of the things I actually brought up, or the thing I brought up while I was there doing that test, is a fantastic. Oh, sorry, I just turned this alarm off. One of the things I actually mentioned on that little test is I didn't want to waste my airtime, and I thought I might as well just share a useful bit of info because that's what we're all about. And there was a fantastic Netflix series which I started watching. Unfortunately, I started watching it at about 1 a.m., 12 o'clock, somewhere around there. And I got completely addicted to this thing. It's called, in Japanese, the name is called Jimenshi. And the English is Tokyo Swindlers, I think was the name in English. And you can catch that on Netflix. I can't remember how many episodes it was, maybe about 8 episodes or so. And I binge watched the whole thing. So I didn't get any sleep that night. And so I suffered for the whole day the next day. But honestly, it was worth it. It was such a good series. A little bit gory at times, but if you're into, sort of interesting crime and a bit of suspense and that kind of thing, a very, very well made series that I found on Netflix the other day. Make sure you check it out. And if you've got any recommendations as well, feel free to drop them in the comments on YouTube or on X if you're watching this or, listening on X. You can drop it in the replies. I'd love to hear from you because I'm always up for an interesting, especially Japanese series. I find them quite entertaining. Another one I mentioned actually in the replies that I really enjoyed recently as well was Kekkon dekinai otoko, the man who can't marry or something like that. That's the loose translation. Anyway, that's that. Another quick one before I go. It's not going to be a heavy episode today, just a quick light one. I mentioned maybe about an hour ago or so on my X feed that I just got back this morning from my colonoscopy results. And that's probably why I'm coming across a little more serious than usual today. It's, as some of you know, that I have dealt with cancer in the past many years ago. And just the talk of the results and things sort of brought back some memories. Because, it's a very lucky thing that I had the colonoscopy done. And the doctor advised me the biopsy results actually came back because I had a couple of polyps removed during the colonoscopy. And the doctor advised that they were about a couple of stages before potentially turning malignant. And so very, very fortunate that I got checked out. So there's nothing to worry about this time. Like, it's totally fine. He's removed it and all that, but he said, he'd like to see me again in a year from now. Whereas usually if they don't find anything like that, I think you're good for a few years until your next checkup. But in my case, he's recommended that I go back in a year's time just to make sure. And maybe there's, potentially places that he missed. And he'd like to just go back and make sure everything's okay. But yeah, like I think I recommended this in a couple of episodes ago. If you're over 40, especially, I'm just repeating what my doctor told me. He said, if you're over 40, I highly recommend getting a colonoscopy done. So make sure you look into it, have a chat to your doctor about it. Very worthwhile. And I think it's something very important, and it's actually very, it can prevent serious problems down the track for you as well. So very worthwhile. Anyway, that's got me in a little bit of a downer today. It's brought back memories from the past with the stuff that I had to deal with years ago, and not very pleasant memories. Whenever I talk about this, I always express it as they're very mixed emotions. It's not, the funny thing about it is it's not very happy or sad. It's not one or the other. It's a mix of emotions, and it just brings back a lot of that for me. And so it's a bit of a heavy topic, but yeah, please, if you do have the opportunity to get checked out, please do. So that brings us to, let me just double check my list. Yes, I've gone through everything I wanted to go through this episode. So we're at the end of the episode, and we always do our word of the day here. And today's word of the day, I want to actually link it up with the colonoscopy thing. And I actually want to bring up a pair of words. I don't usually do this. I usually just make it one word, but let's make it a pair of words because they go hand in hand. So the words are benign and malignant. And these are obviously very important words to know. If your doctor is talking to you in Japanese, you obviously want to be able to know the difference between these two words because one can make you feel relieved and one can make you very distressed, potentially. So benign is ryosei. And I'll put these words here, by the way, on the side of the screen. This is one thing I love about video is that I can put the words up. So ryosei is benign. And malignant is akusei. And these are actually very easy to remember if you know even basic kanji. Akusei, the aku in akusei means bad, and the ryo in ryosei means good. So, quite easy to remember. One's benign. It's, it's not, I wouldn't say it's good for you, but it's not bad. And akusei obviously is bad, and that's malignant. Anyway, that's all for today's episode. Thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll be seeing you all on the X timeline and also here on YouTube. If you're watching here on YouTube, that is, of course. And bye for now.